Good afternoon, and welcome to the first of many HBCU GAP webinars. HBCU, of course, stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and the GAP in that title stands for Graduation Action Plan. And this is the first of many webinars that we will be providing as we work towards increasing the graduation rate at the nation's beloved HBCUs. This is my first webinar, so I am going to ask that you guys bear with me as I work my way through this. I love technology, absolutely, positively love it, but sometimes it requires that you just jump in and do what you can to learn your way around. I find it easier. I think that I've activated everything that needs to be activated. So I am going to get this party started because this is such important information, and I want to make sure that that I can convey as much valuable information about this process as possible. I am drawn to HBCUs, although I did not attend one. I intended to attend one, but I ended up letting love convince me to go to my second choice, which was FSU in Tallahassee. But my first choice was Howard University, and there were several other HBCUs that I had been accepted to. And I don't believe in regrets, but I definitely still have a little twinge whenever I talk about HBCUs because I was on my way to Howard. Okay. I am, as I mentioned, I am absolutely fascinated, absolutely obsessed, it feels like almost, when it comes to HBCUs, especially because of everything that's going on in the country right now, with all the protesting and the awakening as to all of the systemic injustices that are in existence as it relates to black people. It's not just what's going on with the police departments, but I think it's also opening our eyes to what's going on with the school system, with the school-to-prison pipeline, and what's going on as far as our health is concerned, you know, the disparities in our access to adequate health care, and definitely the criminal justice system, not just with the police brutality, but with what happens when our young men and women are arrested and the far lengthier sentences that they are subjected to in comparison to our non-black offenders. And so I'm saying all that to say that I think and I feel deep within my soul that the time is now for our communities to embrace HBCUs, to totally embrace historically black colleges and universities, and to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that not only, you know, more students attend these beloved institutions, but that they actually graduate, which is an issue that's been pervasive for a while. And I don't want to give the impression that graduation rates are issues only at HBCUs, but my focus right now is on everything that impacts people of color, black folks. So the HBCUs have a huge place in my heart, and I believe unequivocally that there are things that can be done to effectively increase the graduation rates. So tonight's webinar goes into the financial aid process, and that's a huge part of why students end up dropping out. So I want to just give an overview on the financial aid process and to just go into detail about some other things that I think definitely impacts on whether a student drops out due to financial reasons. So I have a PowerPoint presentation that I am going to share with you all that captures all the information that I want to convey. I wanted to make sure I got it down in writing so that I did not get excited and forget to tell you guys something. So first off, let's just start with a little background on the nation's HBCUs. there's a Higher Education Act of 1965 that was amended, and it basically defines an HBCU as any historically black college or university that was established prior to 1964. And then it goes into some accreditation information in that description. The thing that I want to emphasize is that HBCUs have a rich, powerful history because HBCUs were created during an era of this country, a painful, tragic, horrific era of this country where former slaves were not allowed to attend mainstream white institutions in order to obtain a college degree, right? And so there were abolitionists, white people who were compassionate to the plight of black people who had been enslaved in this country. And, of course, there were several, African Americans, several black people who knew that coming out of several centuries of enslavement, that black people needed to have access to higher education and in an environment where they would be safe, where they would be nurtured and supported, and that's where HBCUs came from. When I think about the circumstances under which HBCUs were created, usually it makes me kind of emotional because when I think about, everything that was at risk, and the greatest risk, of course, was life and limb, ultimately life, that people put their lives on the line in order for black people to have access to higher education. And that's where HBCUs came from. And over the years, the legal system changed such that, as black folk, we became eligible to attend other universities, predominantly white universities and universities that had greater diversity. And so while we have that opportunity, and I don't knock it because I went to a predominantly white institution myself, but the argument about whether HBCUs are still relevant or not, to me, is one that is growing old, especially because of what's going on now, especially because of what we're being awakened to, as it relates to what black folk have access to and how we're treated in these different systems, right? And when you think about the kind of students that HBCUs educate the entire gamut of African Americans. HBCUs educate the best and the brightest, but then there are students who otherwise would not have an opportunity at a college education that HBCUs welcome with open arms. Okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'm gonna go through the slides that are here. And this one just gives just a little tiny sampling of some of the HBCUs that are in existence in this country. Of course, we have Bethune-Cookman University, and here in Florida. I'm in Florida. And then we have the wonderful Grambling State University, Florida Memorial, Delaware State, Fisk University, Savannah State, Florida A&M. And that's just a really small sample. This slide goes into what I was just talking about. When HBCUs were created, they were absolutely positively essential. There was no other way for black people to obtain a higher education. There was just no other way for that to happen because of what was going on in this country. We were just out of slavery, and a lot of white people did not want to see black people educated. On the flip side, there were a significant number of white people who did want to see black people educated, and those were the abolitionists who worked, hard and side by side with some of our black Americans to make sure that HBCUs were created. Okay, so the other thing I want to go into is that I talked about that. Although blacks may now attend college anywhere they choose, HBCUs continue to offer a valuable opportunity to many. A lot of young people go to HBCUs because they have family members. They go, based on legacy. They have family members who have graduated from, Grambling and FAMU and Hampton and Howard, and so it's a family tradition. That to me is such a beautiful family tradition, right? And so HBCUs, in addition to offering that legacy opportunity, they also they also do a wonderful job of educating the best and the brightest. Some valedictorians from high schools around the country, they select an HBCU. Some of them select it because it's legacy, and some of them select it because they know that they'll be able to get a top-notch education at practically any HBCU that they decide to attend. Okay? The other thing to remember about HBCUs, there are a huge number of students, and I am so grateful for this, a huge number of students who are the first in their family to attend college. And so they don't have the expectation in their household that a college-educated family does for their child. And so the support and the push, the encouragement that they need and that they might typically get if they were in a different family is not there. Not through any fault of the family. Because as Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better, right? And so families who have not had a college experience, they may not know what their role is as it relates to encouraging their student, as it relates to doing certain things to get them prepared to attend college, right? And so HBCUs play a pivotal role for this population of students, because when you have a student who's not only the first in their family to step foot on campus of a college or university, this may actually be the first time that they've ever stepped foot on a college or university campus. This may actually be the first time, and so their own expectations, their own idea, their own bit of realism about what the expectations are for them is like culture shock. HBCUs get that. HBCUs understand where these babies are coming from and what they need, and the nurturing environment that is provided at an HBCU for this population of student is unlike anything they can get anywhere else. And as I mentioned, I graduated from Florida State University, and I had a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it's funny because the nurturing that I got from Florida State University came from black professors who I think, had their eyes out for, young African-American students, and probably somewhere deep within them attempted to replicate an HBCU-type experience for us. That's just me theorizing, that whole situation. But I'm saying all that to say that HBCUs, when you hear that argument about, are they still relevant? Black students can just go wherever they want. They can go to, predominantly white institutions and, get an education. And HBCUs wrap their arms around students who might not be able to qualify to go to a predominantly white institution or to, a community college that has strict admission standards. There are diamonds in the rough in every community. There are students who, for whatever reason, graduated high school without standards that were high enough for them to matriculate at a predominantly white university. That doesn't mean that they're not capable of getting a college education. That does not mean that in the right environment, with the right nurturing, with the right support, and walking onto a campus and seeing other people who look like them, that doesn't mean that won't have an impact on them to such a degree that they cannot become a fine college student and go on and do, what college students do after they graduate. HBCUs get that. HBCUs continue to be relevant and will continue to be relevant. One of the things that's happening with HBCUs is the student population is becoming more diverse. It doesn't take away from the historical significance of what an HBCU is, but HBCUs have to continue to exist in order to capture those diamonds in the rough, those babies who might not make it somewhere else, right? And the thing to remember is that when we get these students into school, it's not enough to get them there. It is not enough to get them into the school. We have to make sure that they graduate. And that's what HBCU GAP is all about. HBCU Graduation Action Plan. We have a strategy. We have an approach that will help families, all families, whether the family is a college-educated family or not. This approach helps everybody to make sure that their babies are ready for college, and then it's very proactive. And so some of the things that happen, just natural things that happen while students are in college, that if left unattended, if there's no intervention, some of those things, just basic things, can lead to a student dropping out, right? HBCU GAP, the Graduation Action Plan, helps a family to be aware of what some of those circumstances are, develop a plan, and so if those things happen, they are in a position to make sure that their babies do not have to drop out unnecessarily. Okay. The last point on this particular slide says HBCUs are especially essential now during what appears to be a major transformational period in the country as it relates to blacks. I strongly believe that if we are able to start a national conversation around all of the protesting that's going on, around all of the awakening that is happening as it relates to the injustices in every single system as it relates to black folk. If we can start a conversation about how HBCUs just might be the secret weapon, I really believe that the support and the energy that HBCUs need to go to the next level and the level after that, I think that will happen. I really, I believe that in my soul. I really believe that could happen. Okay. Just to give you an indication of just how significant and how important HBCUs are, our own FLOTUS, the fabulous Michelle Obama, gave the commencement speech this year at Tuskegee University. And I don't know if you've seen her speech. If you haven't, please check it out. It's on YouTube, and it's been, widely circulated. She's been, widely criticized for some of the things that she said, but she kept it real. She talked about herself and her awesome husband and how they have encountered racism, and she encouraged these babies to look, not to ignore it, but to stand in their truth and to stay focused on what they are here to do and to move forward in a way that they just cannot be stopped. And that's what she said that she did, and I was just so excited to see that. I love that woman. And I like her name. Just in case I did not introduce myself, and I don't think I did, my name is Michelle Hollinger, and I am the founder and the president of HBCU GAP. And I have a passion. I have a passion for historically black colleges and universities. I have a passion for black people. I have a passion for black students, for black children. And that doesn't mean that I don't love everybody else, but I realized that one of the life purposes that I was put on this planet to complete, to accomplish, has to do with HBCUs. And it comes to me in meditation. It comes to me in prayer. I started this company a few years ago, and I wasn't real clear about what I needed to do with it. And so I took a bit of a hiatus from it and just kept praying about it, kept being in meditation about it until it became crystal clear, exactly what it is that I am supposed to do with HBCU GAP. And it is primarily focused on helping to raise the graduation rates at these historic, beloved, beautiful, resilient institutions. I just absolutely, positively love HBCUs. This slide is an image of Denzel, who also did a commencement speech this year at Dillard University. And I showed these two slides just to show that, Michelle Obama did not attend an HBCU. I'm not sure if Denzel did. I don't think he did. But we all, most of us anyway, recognize the importance and the significance of HBCUs. This year, especially more than ever, because of what is going on. And when you look at who some of the protesters are around the country, some of the young people who have stepped up into leadership positions, a very significant number of them are graduates of HBCUs. Can you imagine if all of the babies who are out protesting, if there was an intention as a part of these protests to find as many of diamonds in the rough, and I don't mean to imply that that's the entire population of protesters, but there are a lot of diamonds in the rough in these protests who have natural skills that are not being nurtured, who have this insight and this brilliance about how to connect with their communities and how to help move their communities forward. Some of these babies belong at HBCUs. Oh, my God, some of these babies belong at HBCUs. And a part of this whole process for me is just getting the word out and initiating this discussion at a higher level. Here are some famous HBCU alumni. We all know that Keisha Knight Pulliam went to Spelman. Tom Joyner went to Tuskegee. Spike went to Morehouse. I forget where Michael Strahan went, but he went to an HBCU too. What is her name? I always butcher this woman's name. Anoki Noni Rose went to FAMU. Let me see. We have some more. Yeah. Erica Badu went to Grambling. Kay Michelle went to FAMU. Wendy Raquel Robinson went to Howard. Toni Morrison, the brilliant Toni Morrison, went to Howard. Felicia Rashad went to Howard. There's a Howard thing going on here. Taraji, Miss Empire, went to Howard. And, of course, Miss Oprah Winfrey went to Tennessee State University. She's their most famous grad, okay? I am just showing all of these pictures to just show the rich history, and it's not just a historical thing because, in recent years, people like Keisha Knight Pulliam could have gone anywhere. She chose to go to Spelman because of the rich quality of education that she knew that she was going to receive there. This slide right here, I know you guys recognize who that Morehouse man is. Yeah, none other than the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Morehouse man. Yes, goodness. Okay, so you can't see these figures, but I wanted to put this slide up just to share this information because this is a sampling, a large sampling of the graduation rates from HBCUs. And the top 5 are Spelman, Howard, Hampton, Morehouse, and Fisk. And they all have graduation rates that exceed 50%. Spelman's is at 69%. Howard graduates 65% of its students within 6 years. Some of the other HBCUs kind of hover between, 30 and 40%. And then there are some that graduate, maybe a quarter of their students, maybe 25%. And then there are some that are in the teens, like Texas Southern University. That's where Michael Strahan went, Texas Southern. There are others. Texas Southern University is one of them that graduates only 12% of its students. And I wanted to bring this up, not to depress anybody, but just to make sure that we're all informed about what's going on with HBCUs. And again, this does not mean that, HBCUs are the only institutions that have, challenges as it relates to graduation rates. Because if you have a first-in family and student to go to a predominantly white institution, without the proper support, they too may face challenges that, without intervention could lead to them dropping out, right? But I really wanted to just, get a conversation going to just share with you guys the numbers as it relates to graduation rates and to say to you that I believe with every fiber of my being that those rates could be significantly higher because there are a lot of students who have dropped out unnecessarily. A lot of students were at HBCUs, and they faced, some of the challenges that I mentioned, some typical stuff as it relates to money, as it relates to academics, as it relates to maybe a social situation that's going on, some kind of challenge. And without intervention, it appeared that the only solution was to leave school. What HBCU GAP does is it helps families to understand that No. You don't have to embrace the first possible solution, which is to drop out. Okay? There are strategies, there are things that families can do to help make sure that when, not if, when these things crop up, when these challenges show up in their child's life, their child's college life, there are things that a family can do to help make sure that those kids do not drop out unnecessarily. Okay, so tonight's conversation is going to focus in on the financial reasons, the financial situation rather, as to why students drop out. So these are some of the reasons, of course: financial reasons, academic reasons, social, emotional reasons. A kid, if they are the first, in their family to go to college, and that's not to say that they're the only ones that experience social and emotional reasons, but sometimes kids get away from school and they can't handle it. They're homesick and they don't adapt well, and they just feel like they don't have any other option except to leave home. And, one of the things that HBCU GAP does, that the Graduation Action Plan does, is it helps a family to consider before their kid goes off to school that these are some natural, regularly occurring things that happen in the life of a college student, and these challenges your kid might face one of these challenges, but before they even go off to school, let's sit down and let's think about, let's talk about what are some possible solutions if this particular thing comes up. What are some strategies that can be put into place if your kid faces academic trouble? There are things that can be done. There are things that are done. Families who have college experience and they know that these things happen with their kids, when they find out, and that's one of the other things. Let me put a little pin in that. But when they find out, they jump into action. They jump into action, and they make sure that their kid does not drop out of school unnecessarily. Okay? The little pin that I want to put in that little statement that I made right there is when they find out. One of the reasons that a lot of students at HBCUs, and I'm only going to say HBCUs because that's the topic of my webinar, but a lot of reasons, one of the main reasons that kids drop out is because they're afraid to call home and let their families know what's going on. They're afraid to call home and say, I ran out of money because, money's tight at home, and they don't want to put any additional stress or burden on their families. They're afraid to call home if they face academic troubles because they don't want to disappoint people. They don't want to get into trouble, with family members at home who don't understand how you can go off to college and get into academic trouble. If they're feeling homesick or whatever, they don't feel like they should or that they can call home to share that kind of information with their families because they don't want to disappoint anybody or they're afraid, right? The Graduation Action Plan zeroes in on that dynamic, and we help make sure that when one of these situations happens, that baby does not have a moment's hesitation about reaching out to a particular person in the family. There's always that one person in the family that they can talk to about anything. Well, we give designated roles to people as a part of the Graduation Action Plan. We help people to play to their strengths. So if there is that one person in the family that baby can call and talk to, everybody else in the family has to respect that. Everybody else in the family has to understand that we got to put our egos aside if I'm not the one that's getting that call, because the purpose of that call ultimately is to keep the baby in school. Okay, so the Graduation Action Plan has that kind of approach to making sure that kids don't drop out unnecessarily. Okay? All right, so I finally got up to the purpose for tonight's webinar, is understanding the financial aid process, which is really, really, really important. It's a very, very important part of this whole process because the more prepared and the more diligent you are with, taking care of the financial aid process, the more money your kid can get, and the less that you'll have to come up with, all right? And so the very first step in this whole process is completing the FAFSA. And I'm about to kick myself because I don't remember what FAFSA stands for. It's oh, my goodness, where is it? I have completed it 1,000 times. The federal, what is it? Oh, free application for federal student aid. That's what the FAFSA is. And the earliest that you can complete it is January 1. And so I just really strongly encourage everybody to get that thing completed as quickly as possible. Make it a New Year's resolution that you get it done, like with the quickness. You want to definitely get it done during the month of January. The quicker, the better. If you can, set a goal to have it done by January 7th, January 8th, even before then, get it done. It's one of those things that as parents we procrastinate about. I certainly procrastinated about it when my two daughters were in school. But what I want to encourage you to do is to decide that you are not going to procrastinate about completing the FAFSA, because it's one of those things that once you get started, it usually takes about, especially now because they've simplified the process and there's a tremendous amount of support on the website, which is FAFSA, FAFSA.gov. Tremendous amount of support on that website for how to complete the FAFSA. What I encourage you to do is to go on the website before you get ready to complete it. And just familiarize yourself with the requirements. It has a list on there of all the documents that you'll need to complete this form. It has a video that takes you through the process. It has everything you could possibly need on this website to understand how to complete this FAFSA. You can even, connect directly to the IRS to get your information, streamed straight to the FAFSA application. It's not a tedious process, but leading up to it, parents have this certain amount of dread. Oh, I don't feel like, having to sit at the computer and doing this thing. Trust me, it's worth it. It is so worth it because the sooner you complete it, the more money your kid has access to, okay? Not only at the federal level, but also at the state level, and then also at the HBCU that they are planning to attend, because the HBCUs look at that. They look at the FAFSA to determine, what kind of aid your child qualifies for and how much aid your child qualifies for. So you want to get that done as quickly as possible. Now, if you find that after you've gone to the website, and you've looked at, and again, I just strongly encourage you, just familiarize yourself with the information before you actually get started with the application process, and certainly you want to make sure that you've gathered all the documents that you'll need before you get started, because you don't want to start, and then you get to a certain question and you realize that you don't have a particular document. You may get distracted, you may end up doing something else, and you don't get back to it, right away, and then you start to procrastinate about completing it again. Decide that you are going to get it done at least by mid-January. If you can get it done before then, that is phenomenal. That is fantastic. And just go to the website before you decide that you're going to, devote the time to completing it, and familiarize yourself with the process. If after you've done that you still feel like you need questions before you start, there are people in your family who probably have already completed it. Call somebody, ask them to sit with you to get it done. You can call the school, the high school that your child attends, the college advisor. They understand. They know how to complete the FAFSA. You don't have to do it alone if you don't feel like you're up to being able to do it, with the assistance on the website. You can also call the financial aid office at the HBCU that your kid is going to be attending. There's help for you. There's help for you if you need it. But what I want to stress more than anything else is the importance of getting it completed as quickly as possible, okay? So that's FAFSA. Again, I'm just really impressed with the amount of information that is on the website, and it's very, very user-friendly. I wanted to make sure I put the exact website up here, because there are other websites that have FAFSA in the website, but they're not the actual website. They offer, assistance with completing it, but there's a cost associated. There is no cost associated with completing the FAFSA on the official website, which is FAFSA.gov. Okay? And then they also have the list on the website of the different types of aid that your child can get. All right? One of the things that is important for you to know is that if your child wants to be a teacher, there's some specific dollars set aside, in the form of a grant, which you don't have to pay back, that are awarded to students who agree to teach, in certain areas. And more often than not, those are schools in inner city communities. So if we have an HBCU graduate who's willing to go and teach in the inner city, that in and of itself is just such a huge bonus, because those kids get to see a college graduate that attended an HBCU, and then on top of that, because of that decision, they can get some additional aid because of it. So you want to check that out on the page as well. The other thing that I want to encourage you to do, because a part of what the Graduation Action Plan does is it encourages families to think outside of the box in every situation, but especially as it relates to accumulating enough dollars for your kid to go to school. You want to try to be as proactive as possible. So I have a list right here on this page of possible sources for you to approach with requesting funding for your child. A lot of these sources already offer, small amounts of scholarship money, small amounts of funding for students, in their communities. But most of the time they're not aware of who these students are. They may because members bring students to their attention, but the only way for people to know about your kid and that your kid is going to a particular HBCU and your kid is looking for funding is for you to reach out to these different organizations. They want to hear from you. They definitely want to hear from you. And one of the things that I put together, and I'll go into it a little bit later, is I wrote a sample letter that you guys will have access to, that you can just fill in the blanks, just customize it to your family's specific information, your return address, your child's name, the HBCU that they'll be attending, the year that you anticipate that they'll be graduating, 4 years from whenever they start. So I have a sample letter that you can use to send to these different organizations. You want to send it to your church, your employer, if you're a member of a sorority or a fraternity, even if you're not a member of a fraternity or a sorority. Even if you're not. There are some sororities and fraternities where that is not a requirement. They do community service. They want to help students get into HBCUs. They want to do that. But they don't know that you exist unless you're already in touch with them or you're already a member. You have to reach out. You have to decide that you are going to just become this fundraising machine for your child. Okay? You want to make sure that your kid goes off to school with as much money as possible so that money is not an issue for your kid. That's what I want to see happen. It breaks my heart to hear when a kid is academically capable of performing at school. They have adjusted socially. They are doing well in every aspect of the game, but then something happens financially and they have to drop out. I just really want our community to get into the position where that's just unacceptable to us. That's just not something that we are willing to live with. If a kid can make it academically, socially, mentally, money should not be the reason that those babies have to drop out. They just should not have to. And what I'm suggesting and what the Graduation Action Plan encourages you to do and it guides you through the process is to think outside of the box. This is a partial list. I'm sure you could come up with many more to add to this list. And then you develop a strategy where you are going to send this letter that I will provide to you. You can send this letter to these different organizations, and you just start to accumulate as much money as you possibly can for your child so that money is not an issue. And then I want you also to do your research because you can Google, scholarship money for a particular field that your child is going into. If your kid is going to be an architect, for example, there are professional architecture organizations that want to see young African Americans enter the field, and they would love to provide some financial assistance. But you have to reach out. Don't just stop at completing the FAFSA and thinking that that's going to provide everything that you need. In many cases, it might, or it may provide a sufficient amount that you only have to come up with a tiny additional amount. But in some cases, that's not the case. In some situations, you may have to come up with, additional monies to help your child to have a satisfactory, effective college experience. You don't want them stressed out over money, and you definitely don't want an academically capable kid having to leave school because of money. It has to become unacceptable for us. Unacceptable. The other thing I want to zero in on this list too is to check with the financial aid office at the school that your kid is going to be attending to find out about unique scholarships, because there are some scholarships that are available that don't have an academic requirement attached to it. I'm going to give an example. When I was at Florida State and I went to the financial aid office to find out, can I get some more money because the sister needed some help, and I looked, the financial aid officer pointed to this big, thick book that was on the shelf, and she told me, take as much time as you need, but look through that and see if there's anything in there that you qualify for. And initially I looked at that big book and I thought, oh, my God, man, I don't feel like looking through this thing. But I am so glad that I did, because I came across a scholarship. It was called the DEEB, D-E-E-B, and it was named after this awesome family scholarship that was for orphans. And, when I first looked at it, I'm like, I'm not an orphan. My mom was dead, but that I didn't realize that there was a different definition according to their requirements for what, constituted an orphan. And so, when I looked at it and realized that, okay, nope, I haven't seen my father in 7 years, and I'm not getting any financial support for him, so I qualified. And those people sent me a sizable amount of money I only had to apply one time, and they provided me with money every single semester until I graduated 4 years later, because I looked in that financial aid book and just looked through it, just decided I was going to just spend the day, and I looked through that book, and I read these different scholarships and different funding sources to see, do I meet that? Nope, I don't meet that. Nope. Came across deep, and it was a godsend. Yes, it was. And so I'm saying all that to say, look for unique scholarship opportunities for your kid. Look in the financial aid office. Definitely go on Google. Check with the high school counselor at your kid's school to find out what is available, and do your work. One of the main things that's really important once you contact these different organizations and someone actually does provide funding, you want to stay in touch. And the very first thing that should happen is a thank you, a written, not text message, not a telephone call, a written thank you card. And that's important for a number of reasons. But the main reason is because they will not forget you. That is such a lost art now, sending a thank you card in the mail. They will not forget you. And what will happen is if in the future, additional funding becomes available, guess what they're going to think about? The person, Mr. Jones, Mr. Johnson, Miss Smith, who sent that thank you card. The other thing that I want to say, too, is in addition to that, stay in touch with them. Find ways to stay in touch. Christmas cards roll around. Send out a Christmas card. Make sure that they're on your list. Send them a Christmas card. At the end of every semester, just send a little note. In this case, you could even send a text message or make a telephone call where you just give them, just stay in touch. Hey, we're really grateful that you provided this financial support for Alicia. Guess what? She made the dean's list during this semester. She's gotten involved with this, that, and the other. Just stay in touch. Find a reason to stay in touch. They will feel so fulfilled and gratified to know that your child is doing well, but it also keeps you in their mind. It also keeps you in their mind so that if and when funding becomes available in the future, guess what they're going to think about, okay? So when your child graduates, not if, because if you follow the graduation action plan, the likelihood that your child will graduate is so strong. When they graduate, make sure that you send the funders, an announcement, get a graduation picture, send them a graduation picture. You just want to just make sure that they feel a part of that process. If it's possible, because I know that there are a limited number of invitations that each family gets for graduation, but if it's possible, give them an invite to come to the graduation as well, okay? Most important thing that I want to convey is that the attitude that you embrace as your child goes off to college is everything. Have an expectation that if your child is leaving for school in 2015, what's 4 years from now? 2019, they will be graduating. And when you speak to them, refer to that year and that semester frequently. Make that a regular part of conversation. Ooh, girl, I cannot wait until the fall of 2019 when I see my baby cross that stage. Make sure that they know that you're excited about that expectation. And then have the attitude that you are going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they do not drop out unnecessarily. Keeping in mind what I said about so many kids come home because they don't realize that there are alternatives to dropping out of school. Okay? I think it was a couple of years ago, there's a federal loan called the Parent Plus loan, and the administration, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what the deal was with that, but they changed the rules. And so a lot of parents who previously qualified for that loan, all of a sudden, they did not qualify. And there were notifications that went out prior to the actual changes taking place. But I'm not sure what the process was for making sure that families were aware of the changes, prior to the changes actually happening. So a lot of families were caught off guard. A lot of families were caught off guard, and it really hit HBCUs hard. It hit HBCUs in the gut. A lot of babies had to either not go back to school, or if they were there, they had to come home because this loan that their families previously qualified for, they no longer qualified for. And so a huge chunk of funding that, traditionally and typically would have gone towards paying their college expenses, it wasn't available to their families anymore. Okay? I'm saying all that to say that the Graduation Action Plan keeps those kinds of things in mind. It keeps those kinds of things in mind. We can't predict everything that's going to happen, but if and when something like that does happen, then there's a strategy already in place for a family to implement to make sure that their kid does not leave school unnecessarily. Okay? Well, let me go back to that previous slide because that's important too. I mentioned that it's important for you to have the expectation and for you to convey to your child that you expect them to graduate, and to say it with enthusiasm and with encouragement, and to say it on a regular basis. Have other family members to say it as well. Because just in the spiritual realm, what you expect is what becomes real. What you expect is what you attract into your life. And what our children, when they know what our expectations are, they rise or they fall to our expectations. If they know that, it's not a big deal whether they graduate or not, then the likelihood that they'll stick it out if and when one of these challenges arises, then that it might not turn out the way that we want it to, right? But if they know, and the Graduation Action Plan helps them to know what the family's expectations are, because they have this powerful, really powerful family meeting before they leave off to go to school. And they get to know firsthand what their family's expectations are for them. They know what the family's expectations are, right? And so I'm just saying all that to say that the attitude is like a magnet, and what you think is what you attract. I believe that wholeheartedly. Just be prepared. Be prepared to respond powerfully to whatever happens when your child goes to school. Be prepared to respond. Be prepared to take action. The Graduation Action Plan helps you to do that, okay? And this is, I think, the most important slide that a parent can consider. Embrace a determined mentality. Remember what I said about if a kid academically can cut it, they've adjusted socially and emotionally and mentally, there is no reason for us to allow money to be an issue that causes that baby to leave school. When kids drop out of school, it does a number on them emotionally, on their self-esteem. And, sure, they may be thinking, you know what, I'll do my best and I'll go back. But then life takes over. They end up having to get a job. And next thing you know, all these years have passed by. And the thing that is important to remember is that quote-unquote failure, that experience of having to leave school, especially if they were doing well academically, especially if they were meeting the requirements to remain in school based on their academic performance, if they had to leave school based on money, then that just leaves a scar, and it stays with them for the rest of their lives. Every time they get ready to start something new, that's right there. That is right there. And that's not to say that a kid who drops out cannot resume their college education. Many of them do. But what I'm offering is that if we can prevent that from happening, why wouldn't we? Why would we not, prevent our kids from going through that experience if we have it in our means to do so? So it's really important that we, as parents, just embrace that by any means necessary mentality. And the Graduation Action Plan helps you to do that, because the process is a strength-based process. It brings a family together in a way like nothing I have ever seen. I'm a sociology major from Florida State, and I worked for many years with families. Again, I absolutely, positively love black families. We are some of the most resilient, most resourceful, most creative people I have ever encountered in my life, and I speak from experience. And what I'm saying with this process, because I know it to be true, is that if families have a strategy, if they know what to do in order to prevent their kids from dropping out of school, if that's possible, whether it's an academic reason, whether it's a financial reason, or any other reason, if they know in advance that there are things that they can do, guess what? They will do it. They will do it. That kid who's the first in the family to go off to school, they have begun a powerful tradition. And what we want to make sure is that if they are the first in the family to go off to school, that they are not the last. That that decision for them to go off to school has ripple effects within that family, within that community, within that state, for all of us. That it has ripple effects. One of the things that I love about the graduation action plan is we pull together a small number of people in the family because we need to make sure that it remains manageable because, again, each person has a role to play. And the graduation action plan spells that out. But there are also observers in the family who can come and just watch the process. So we have the little children in the family to come and be in that audience so that they can see this process. And they can know that college is a part of their future, too. It has ripple effects, powerful, powerful, powerful ripple effects within a family. Oh, my God, I love this process so much. I adapted it from a process that I learned many, many years ago that we used when we trained social workers and when they worked with families. And one of the things that I love about the process is that it's so adaptable, and you can use it in any situation. And it's a positive, motivational, uplifting family meeting, and it definitely benefits the person, the child who is about to go off to college, but it also impacts everybody else in the room because there's something about pulling a family together in a strength-based environment. You know, people who cannot be positive. People who cannot get excited about a kid going off to college, they should not be invited to your graduation action plan. This has to be a village of positive folk who want to see this baby reach their full potential. And a part of reaching that potential is attending and graduating from an HBCU. This is exciting for me because I just know unequivocally that this will make a difference. I just know it will. It absolutely will make a difference. What else did I want to say about this particular process? My time is about running out. I want to make sure I get through everything. I went through some of this already. I talked about the Parent Plus loan. Dropping out can have lifelong consequences. If a family doesn't have information, user-friendly skills, a plan to obtain resources, a kid could drop out unnecessarily. I went through all of that. Okay. I know I'm going kind of fast tonight, so I want to give you guys my email address. I give it later in this presentation, but just in case I run out of time, let me say that my email address is hbcugap@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, I didn't activate the Q&A tonight because I wanted to, for the first one, I just want to make sure I got all the information out there. But I am definitely available to you if you have questions about anything that I've discussed tonight. If you have questions about anything as it relates to HBCU GAP, you can definitely send me an email at hbcugap@gmail.com, and I will definitely answer your question. Okay. So let me get to the actual HBCU GAP, the Graduation Action Plan. It is a one-time investment that covers the entire college experience. Okay, I'm practically giving it away for everyone who signs up for it tonight because it's that important to me, and I wanted to make sure that those of you who took the time to get this information that you have access to it at a ridiculously reduced price. The actual value is $116, and it's $29 per year, and that's based on a 4-year college experience, but I'm not going to charge you anywhere near that amount for it. There's an introductory price that's for today only, and when you order today, you get bonus material. You get the sample letter that I talked about that you can use. You can customize it, modify it to your child's information and your family's information and send it to the list of different funding sources that I mentioned. You will also get a free subscription to HBCU GAP. I'm going to start a monthly newsletter that will include every bit of information that you could possibly imagine as it relates to financial situations, HBCUs, what's going on with them. I have access to the White House initiative on HBCUs. That newsletter will just be really, really informative. What I plan to do is just to always, I have Google alerts and just making sure that I get all of the information that a parent would need, but making sure that I get it all in one place so you guys don't have to go searching for it. I still encourage you to search for, just to stay on top of information that impacts your child. But I plan to make sure that you get that with the free newsletter. And then there's some other free products that you will get by signing up tonight. Let me get to that. The price is only $15. Disregard that website. I had some technical difficulties with the website, and so the website is not available. So let me get to the next slide to show you what I need you to do. That's what the price boils down to, $3.75 per year if your kid is in school for 4 years. And, again, this is not a process where I'm trying to get rich off of conveying this information. It is, again, it's worth every bit of $116, but I really want to make sure that you guys get the information. Okay, here it is. If you guys make sure that you send an email to me at HBCU GAP, because I had technical difficulties with the website, so you can't actually order it tonight. But if you send me an email at hbcugap@gmail.com by 8:45 tonight, and just put in the subject for that email, by any means necessary. Just indicate in the email that you're interested in ordering the graduation action plan, and I'm pretty sure that I'll have all of the technical stuff worked out by tomorrow. And so I'll send you guys a link where you can actually go ahead and order it, okay? Again, if you have any questions about anything that I discussed tonight, you can send it to me at hbcugap@gmail.com. My name is Michelle Hollinger. I'm the founder and the president of HBCU GAP, and I am just really, really, really excited about doing everything that we can as a community, as a village, for making sure that our babies do not drop out unnecessarily, because there are so many of them that can stay there and leave with degree in hand if their families understand that there are things that they can do to make sure that they don't drop out unnecessarily. So with that, I am going to thank each and every one of you for participating in my very first webinar for HBCU GAP. And again, go ahead and if you're interested in getting the graduation action plan, send that email with by any means necessary. That's our philosophy, by any means necessary, in the subject line to hbcugap@gmail.com. Do it by 8:45 tonight, and I'll make sure that I get the link out to you tomorrow where you can actually go ahead and order the graduation action plan. It's a powerful, powerful process. It's one that, I absolutely adore. It's extremely effective. And in addition to making sure that your child is on track to graduate from college, it just has, like I said before, these beautiful ripple effects for the family that's involved in the process. So thank you again so much for participating, and I have your contact information, so when another webinar comes up, and I will be doing them on a regular basis, you will get the information. So thank you very, very much. Peace.